"You won't last a minute, human," boasted the alien princess, unaware of who she faced. The grand arena of the Volante Empire stretched across the horizon like a monument to war itself, its golden spires reaching toward the purple sky as if trying to pierce the heavens. Above, Captain Seo Jinwoo stood at the edge of the diplomatic balcony, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched thousands of Volante warriors fill the ancient Colosseum below. Their scaled skin shimmered under the twin suns, and their voices rose in a thunderous chorus that shook the very stones beneath his feet. He had not come here to fight. He had come here to talk, to negotiate, to build bridges between humanity and one of the galaxy's oldest warrior empires. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans for him tonight. "Captain, perhaps we should return to the ship," Lieutenant Park Yuna whispered at his side, her dark eyes scanning the crowd with obvious concern. "The Volante do not seem pleased with our presence here." Jinwoo offered her a small smile, but did not move from his position. He had faced worse odds before, though his crew did not know the full extent of his past. The GSS Horizon had arrived at the Volante homeworld 3 days ago, carrying hopes of establishing trade routes and diplomatic relations between Earth and the Empire. The Galactic Council had assured them that the Volante were open to negotiation. But the Council had failed to mention one critical detail: the Volante despised humanity to them. Humans were soft creatures from a mild world, newcomers who had stumbled into the stars by accident rather than earning their place through conquest and blood. They saw Earth's children as weak, fragile things unworthy of respect, and no one embodied this disdain more than Princess Caliph Vashan herself. She entered the diplomatic banquet hall like a storm given physical form, her crimson scales catching the light as she moved with the fluid grace of a predator. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her golden eyes burning with an ancient pride that had been passed down through 1,000 generations of warrior queens. Though other diplomats parted before her like water before a blade. But Jinwoo remained where he stood, meeting her gaze without flinching. "So this is the human ambassador," Caliph declared, her voice cutting through the hall like a whip. "I expected something more impressive, but I suppose one cannot expect much from a species that evolved from tree-dwelling animals." Scattered laughter rippled through the Volante nobles, but Jinwoo simply inclined his head in polite acknowledgement. "Your Highness," he said calmly, "I am Captain Zhao Jinwoo of the GSS Horizon. I come bearing greetings from Earth and hopes for friendship between our peoples." "Friendship." Caliph repeated the word as if it tasted foul on her tongue. "The Volante do not seek friendship with the weak. We seek only worthy allies, and humanity has proven nothing to us. Then allow us the opportunity to prove ourselves through cooperation and mutual benefit." "Cooperation is for those who cannot stand alone," the princess interrupted, stepping closer until she towered over him. "Tell me, human, do your people even know how to fight, or do you simply hide behind your machines and pray that stronger species will protect you?" Jinwoo felt his crew tense behind him. He could sense Engineer Kwon Tae-hyun's anger rising, could feel Lieutenant Park's hand drifting toward her sidearm. But he raised a subtle hand to calm them. "We know how to fight," he answered quietly. "We simply prefer not to when words can achieve the same result." "Words?" Caliph laughed, and the sound was sharp and mocking. "Words are the weapons of cowards. In the Volante Empire, we settle our disputes with honor, with blade and blood in the sacred arena." She gestured toward the massive Colosseum visible through the hall's windows, where even now crowds gathered for the evening's entertainment. "Perhaps that is what we need here," she continued, her golden eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "There is a trade dispute between your people and mine, yes? A disagreement over mining rights in the outer territories? That is one of the matters we hope to discuss. Then let us settle it the Volante way," Caliph announced loudly, ensuring every noble in the hall could hear. I challenge humanity to honor combat. Send your champion to face me in the arena, and we shall see if your species deserves a place among the stars. The hall erupted in excited murmurs. This was unprecedented. A princess of the blood offering personal challenge to a foreign species. Jinwoo understood immediately what she was doing. If humanity refused, they would be branded cowards, and no Volanti would ever treat with them as equals. If they accepted and lost, it would prove the Empire's belief that humans were inferior. Either way, she won. And if we refuse this challenge? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Then take your ships and leave our space. Caliph replied with a dismissive wave. The Volanti have no use for cowards, and your mining rights will be forfeit. Jinwoo closed his eyes for a long moment. Years of training, years of service, years of trying to build peace instead of waging war. All of it came down to this single moment when he opened his eyes again. Something had changed in them. Something old and dangerous stirred behind his calm exterior. I accept your challenge, he said. The whole fell silent. You? Caliph stared at him with genuine surprise. The diplomat himself wishes to fight? Unless you prefer to face someone else? The princess threw back her head and laughed, and her nobles joined her in a chorus of mockery that filled the chamber. Oh, this is too perfect, she managed between fits of laughter. The soft little human thinks he can stand against me, against the undefeated champion of 200 arena matches. She stepped forward until they were nearly touching, looking down at him with absolute contempt burning in her golden eyes. You won't last a minute. Human Jinwoo met her gaze without wavering, and somewhere deep within him, the ghost of the soldier he used to be began to wake from its long slumber. Then I suppose, he said softly, we shall see. What the princess did not know, what no one in that hall could have known, was that the quiet diplomat standing before her had once been something far more dangerous than any Volanti warrior. And tomorrow, the galaxy would remember why humanity had survived when so many other species had fallen. The preparation chambers beneath the grand arena were cold and dark, carved from ancient stone that had witnessed 10,000 years of combat and death. Jinwoo stood alone in the dim light, examining the weapons that had been laid out for him on a worn wooden table. A curved Volanti blade called a karsheth, its edge gleaming with deadly sharpness, and a light shield made from the shell of some massive creature long since hunted to extinction. Simple weapons for what the Volanti considered a simple contest. Captain, please reconsider. Lieutenant Park Yuna's voice came from the doorway, tight with barely contained fear. There must be another way. We can contact the council, file a formal protest, and be branded cowards across the entire empire. Jinwoo replied without turning. No, Yuna. This is the only way forward. Engineer Quan Taehyun pushed past the lieutenant, his broad face flushed with anger. Then let me fight in your place, Captain. I grew up on the mining colonies. I know how to handle myself in a brawl. Taehyun. Jinwoo finally turned to face his crew, and something in his expression made the engineer fall silent. This is not a brawl. It is a statement. If humanity sends anyone other than our highest-ranking officer to answer this challenge, the Volanti will see it as an insult. But sir, Yuna stepped forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. The princess has killed 47 opponents in that arena. She's undefeated in 200 matches. How can you possibly? Only 200? Jinwoo asked, and there was something strange in his voice. Something almost like dark amusement. His crew exchanged confused glances as their captain lifted the curved blade and tested its balance with practiced ease. His movements were different now, fluid, precise, economical, nothing like the careful diplomat they had served under for the past 3 years. Captain, Taehyun said slowly, Your service record has 15 years of redacted entries before you joined the diplomatic corps. I always wondered about that. But I never asked because it was not my place. Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of memories he had tried very hard to bury. Have either of you heard of the First Contact War? Both officers nodded. Everyone knew of the war, the brutal conflict that had erupted when humanity first encountered the Kreth swarm, a species of insectoid predators that had already consumed a dozen civilizations before reaching Earth's colonies. I was there. Jinwoo said simply. From the first day to the last, he set down the blade and slowly rolled up his sleeve, revealing a forearm covered in strange, ridged scars that formed an almost artistic pattern against his skin. The Kreth warriors had these barbed appendages. He continued, tracing one of the scars with his finger. If you got close enough to fight them hand to hand, they would carve you up before you could blink. The only way to survive was to be faster, meaner, and more willing to die than they were. Yuna's face had gone pale. Sir, those scars, you fought them in close combat? For 3 years, Jinwoo confirmed. I was part of a unit called the Ghost Division. We were dropped behind enemy lines to do the jobs that no one else could do, the jobs that no one else would survive. He let his sleeve fall back down, covering the marks of his past at the Battle of Theta Station. 200 of us held the line against 10,000 Kreth warriors for 6 days. We did not have reinforcements. We did not have supplies. We had only our blades and our refusal to die. How many survived? Taehyun asked quietly. 17. The word hung in the air like a ghost, and neither officer knew what to say. I became a diplomat because I was tired of killing. Jinwoo continued, picking up the blade once more. I wanted to build things instead of destroying them. I wanted to believe that words could accomplish what weapons could not. He turned to face his crew with eyes that had seen horrors they could not imagine. But I have not forgotten how to fight. I have simply chosen not to until now. A Volante guard appeared at the chamber entrance, his scaled face impassive. Human, it is time. The arena awaits. Jinwoo nodded and began walking toward the exit. But Yuna caught his arm. Captain, one question, she said. The Ghost Division, I have heard rumors about them. They say that Earth soldiers fought in conditions that would kill any other species in minutes. They say that humans are something called Deathworlders, that our planet is so harsh that we evolved to survive anything. Jinwoo smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The rumors are true, Lieutenant. Earth is a world of extreme temperatures, violent weather, toxic plants, and predators in every ecosystem. Most species look at our homeworld and see a death trap. We look at it and see home. He gently removed her hand from his arm. The Volante think they are warriors because they have fought other civilized species in honorable combat. They have never faced something that crawled out of Earth's jungles. Something that learned to hunt before it learned to speak. Something that carries 100,000 years of survival in its very bones. With that, he walked toward the arena entrance, leaving his stunned crew behind in the stands above. Princess Khalith Rashun was completing her own preparations, surrounded by servants who polished her ceremonial armor until it gleamed like fresh blood. Your Highness, one of her advisors said carefully, perhaps you should not underestimate this human. There are strange stories about their species. Stories told by cowards, Khalith dismissed with a wave. Look at him, he is small, soft, and weak. This will be over before it begins. But in the crowd, an elderly Volante warrior watched the human enter the arena floor with ancient eyes that had seen many battles. As Jinwoo rolled up his sleeves to adjust his grip on the blade, the elder caught sight of the scars on his forearms. His scales went pale, and his confident smile faded into something very much like fear. He recognized those marks. He had seen them once before. On the body of a human soldier that had been recovered after the Theta Station massacre. Those were Kreth combat scars. By the ancient gods, the elder whispered to no one in particular. What has the princess awakened? In the arena below, Jinwoo settled into a stance that no Volanthi had ever seen before, loose, relaxed. Patient, the stance of a predator that knew it had all the time in the world. The crowd roared for blood. But the human remained perfectly still, waiting for the hunt to begin. 50,000 Volanthi voices rose as one when Princess Kelith Vershan entered the arena. Their thunderous cheers shaking the ancient stones and sending tremors through the very air itself. She was a vision of martial perfection. Her crimson scales gleaming beneath ceremonial armor that had been worn by warrior queens for 100 generations. In her hands, she carried twin Kershith blades, their curved edges singing as she spun them in elaborate patterns that demonstrated her absolute mastery. The crowd loved her, their undefeated champion, their princess of blood and blade, the living embodiment of everything the Volanthi believed themselves to be across the arena floor. Jinwoo stood motionless, his single blade held loosely at his side. He looked small compared to the towering princess, almost fragile in the simple combat tunic he had been given. To the watching thousands, he appeared to be a lamb waiting for slaughter. Warriors of the Empire. The arena announcer's voice boomed across the Colosseum. Today we witness a challenge of honor. Princess Kelith Vershan faces the human champion in single combat. The stakes, the mining rights of the outer territories and the honor of two species. The crowd roared again, but Jinwoo did not react. His eyes remained fixed on Kelith, watching her every movement with the patient attention of a hunter studying his prey. Let the battle begin. Kelith exploded forward like a crimson comet, her blade spinning in deadly arcs that would have carved a lesser opponent into pieces before they could even raise their guard. She was fast, impossibly fast, her attacks flowing together in a seamless dance of destruction that had ended 47 lives before. Todai Jinwoo simply stepped aside. Her first strike whistled past his ear by inches. Her second carved the air where his chest had been a heartbeat earlier. Her third, fourth, and fifth attacks met nothing but empty space as the human flowed around them like water around stone. The crowd's cheering began to falter. Stand still and fight, coward. Kelith snarled, launching another flurry of attacks that should have overwhelmed any opponent. But Jinwoo was not fighting. He was reading, studying her patterns, memorizing her rhythms, learning the subtle tells that preceded each of her movements. This was how humans had survived the Kreth War, not through superior strength or speed, but through patience and adaptation. 30 seconds passed. The princess was breathing harder now, frustration beginning to crack her confident facade. No opponent had ever lasted this long against her opening assault. Most were dead or dying by now, their blood staining the arena. San Jinwoo had not even raised his blade to block. What are you doing? Kelith demanded, circling him with murder in her golden eyes. Are you too afraid to attack? Is this human courage to run and hide like prey? I am learning, Jinwoo replied calmly, and something about his voice made several Volanthi in the front rows shift uncomfortably in their seats. 45-second Kelith screamed in rage and launched herself at him with every ounce of speed and strength she possessed. Her blades became a blur of silver death, attacking from angles that should have been impossible to defend against. Jinwoo began to move. He did not fight like a Volanthi. There was no honor in his movements, no elegance, no respect for the sacred traditions of arena combat. He fought like something primal and terrible, like a creature that had learned violence long before it learned civilization. He ducked beneath a decapitating strike and drove his elbow into her ribs. He deflected a thrust with his blade and slammed his forehead into her face. He caught her arm and twisted it at an angle that made the watching crowd gasp in horror. That move is forbidden. Someone shouted from the stands. In Volanthi combat, Yes, Jinwoo agreed, releasing her arm before it broke. But I am not Volanti. 1 minute past, the crowd had fallen completely silent. The only sounds were Keleth's ragged breathing and the soft shuffle of feet on sand. The princess stared at the human with new eyes, seeing him truly for the first time. Blood dripped from a cut on her face where his forehead had connected, the first wound she had suffered in over 100 matches. What are you? She whispered. I am human, Jinwoo answered, settling back into his patient stance. On my world, our ancestors hunted prey for days without rest. We chased animals until their hearts gave out from exhaustion. We did not need to be the fastest or the strongest. We simply needed to be the last one standing. He began to circle her slowly, and for the first time, it was the princess who was forced to retreat. We do not fight in minutes, Your Highness. We fight until the other side cannot continue. This is what it means to come from a death world. This is what it means to be human. Keleth raised her blades with trembling arms. I have trained my entire life for combat. I have mastered every form, every technique, every... You have mastered arena combat, Jinwoo interrupted. Controlled, honorable, civilized. You have never faced something that fights to survive. Something that will bite and scratch and claw until its last breath. He moved forward. And this time, he did not defend. His blade met hers with a crash that echoed across the silent arena. Again and again, he struck, each blow landing exactly where he wanted it to land, exploiting openings that Keleth did not even know she was leaving. He targeted joints, pressure points, nerve clusters, places that Volanti warriors considered dishonorable to attack. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. The princess was stumbling now, her legendary speed failing her as exhaustion began to take its toll. Humans, she was beginning to understand, did not tire like other species. Their bodies were designed for endurance, for persistence, for the long hunt that ends only when the prey collapses. Jinwoo caught her blade in a bind, twisted, and sent it spinning across the arena floor. Her second blade followed moments later, clattering uselessly against the ancient stones. Keleth Vershan, undefeated champion of 200 matches, fell to her knees before a human diplomat. The arena was utterly silent. 50,000 Volanti sat in stunned disbelief as their princess knelt in the sand, unarmed, defeated. At the mercy of a creature they had dismissed as weak and worthless, Jinwoo stood over her, his blade raised, his breathing perfectly. Steady, yield, he said, quiet like Keleth looked up at him, with eyes that held no anger, only shock and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I yield, she whispered, and the words carried across the silent arena like a death knell for everything the Volanti believed about humanity. The silence that followed Keleth's surrender was heavier than any sound could have been. It pressed down upon the arena like a physical weight, crushing the pride of 50,000 Volanti who had come to watch their princess destroy an inferior species. Jinwoo stood motionless, his blade still raised above the kneeling princess, and every eye in the Colosseum was fixed upon him with a mixture of shock and dread. The imperial box high above the arena floor, Emperor Vorthas gripped the arms of his throne with enough force to crack the ancient wood. Beside him, his honor guard had drawn their ceremonial blades, ready to intervene if the human dared to harm their princess. But intervention would mean admitting that Keleth had lost, truly lost, and that was a shame the Empire could not bear. By sacred law, the arena announcer's voice wavered as he spoke. The victor may claim the life of the defeated, or take them as property to serve until death. What is your will, human champion? Jinwoo looked down at Keleth, and what he saw was not an enemy. It was a young woman who had been raised to believe that strength was everything, that mercy was weakness, that the universe rewarded only those who dominated others. She was trembling now, though she tried to hide it. Her golden eyes stared up at him with the desperate pride of someone who refused to beg even when facing death. He had seen that look before. On the faces of young soldiers in the Kreth War, children barely old enough to hold weapons, thrown into a meat grinder of violence and told that dying with honor was the greatest achievement they could hope. Jinwoo lowered his blade. The crowd gasped as one. A collective intake of breath that rippled through the arena like a wave. I claim neither her life nor her service, Jinwoo said, his voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. He reversed his grip on the Karshith and drove it point first into the sand, then extended his empty hand toward the princess. Stand up, Your Highness. Kellis stared at his offered hand as if it were a venomous creature. I do not understand. You have won. The law gives you the right. The law gives me many rights, Jinwoo agreed. But having a right does not mean I must use it. I did not come to your world to kill or enslave. I came to build bridges between our peoples. He kept his hand extended, patient, waiting. You fought with honor, he continued. You faced an unknown enemy without hesitation. You stood your ground, even when you realized you were outmatched. These are qualities worthy of respect, not punishment. Slowly, hesitantly, Kelith reached up and took his hand. His grip was strong and warm as he helped her rise to her feet, and she found herself standing face to face with the creature she had dismissed as weak and worthless mere hours ago. Why? She asked, and her voice cracked on the single word. I insulted you. I insulted your entire species. I called you soft, weak, unworthy. Why would you show me mercy? Jinwoo released her hand and turned to face the Imperial box, raising his voice so that the entire arena could hear. Your Majesty, honored warriors of the Volanthi Empire, I did not come here to prove that humanity is superior. I came here to prove that we are worthy of respect. He paused, letting his words sink in. On my world, we have a saying. The truest measure of strength is not what you can destroy, but what you choose to protect. The strongest warrior is not the one who kills without hesitation, but the one who can kill and chooses not to. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not how challenges were supposed to end. This was not how enemies behaved. I have killed, Jinwoo continued, and something dark passed across his face. I have killed more than I can count, in wars that most of you have never heard of. I know the weight of taking a life, and I carry that weight every day. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing the Kreth scars that had made the elderly warrior pale with recognition. These marks come from the First Contact War, when humanity faced extinction at the hands of the Kreth swarm. For 3 years, I fought them in close combat, blade against claw, will against instinct, human stubbornness against alien hunger. The Emperor leaned forward in his throne, his ancient eyes narrowing with new interest. I was part of a unit called the Ghost Division, Jinwoo continued. At the Battle of Theta Station, 200 of us held the line against 10,000 Kreth warriors for 6 days without relief. We did not fight for glory or honor. We fought because there were civilian transports behind us carrying children, and we refused to let a single one of those children die. His voice grew harder, colder. 17 of us survived. The rest gave their lives so that others could live. That is what humanity considers true strength, not the ability to take life, but the willingness to give it in defense of the innocent. He turned back to Kelith, who stood frozen beside him, her worldview crumbling around her with every word he spoke. I became a diplomat because I was tired of killing, he said more quietly. I wanted to prove that words could accomplish what weapons could not. Today, I hope I have proven something else, that mercy is not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. Movement in the Imperial box caught everyone's attention. Emperor Vorthas rose from his throne. The crowd fell into shocked silence once more. No ruling emperor had descended from the Imperial box in 300 years. It was simply not done. The emperor was above such things, too sacred to walk among common warriors, but Vorthas walked now, his ancient robes trailing behind him as his honor guards scrambled to keep up. He descended the long staircase to the arena floor. Each step echoing like thunder in the absolute stillness. Jin Wu stood his ground as the emperor approached. Meeting the ancient ruler's gaze without flinching, Vorthas stopped before him. Studying the human with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall, in all my years, the emperor said slowly, I have never witnessed anything like what I've seen today. You defeated our greatest champion, and then you showed her mercy. You had the right to humiliate us, and instead you taught us a lesson about strength that we have forgotten. He reached out and placed his hand on Jin Wu's shoulder, a gesture of respect that made several nobles gasp in astonishment. You are not what we expected, human. You are something far more dangerous and far more valuable than a mere warrior. Jin Wu inclined his head respectfully. I am only what my world made me, your majesty. Nothing more and nothing less. The emperor smiled, and it transformed his stern face into something almost warm. Then perhaps, he said, it is time we learned more about this world of yours and the remarkable creatures it produces. In that moment, standing in the blood-stained sand of the grand arena, something shifted between humanity and the Volanthi Empire. It was not yet alliance, not yet friendship, but it was the beginning of understanding, and sometimes that is enough. The diplomatic chambers of the imperial palace were nothing like the brutal arena where everything had changed just hours before. Here, soft lights glowed from crystal fixtures, and ancient tapestries depicting Volanthi conquests hung from walls carved with the names of fallen hero. Jin Wu sat across from Emperor Vorthas at a table made from wood that had been old when humanity was still learning to make fire. Between them lay documents that would reshape the relationship between two species. The mining rights in the outer territories are yours, the emperor said, pressing his seal into warm wax, as are the trade routes through our space. Furthermore, I am prepared to offer humanity something we have never offered any species in our 10,000-year history. Jin Wu raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Waiting full military alliance, Vorthas continued. Not as subordinates, but as equals. Your ships beside ours, your warriors fighting alongside our own. It was more than Jin Wu had dared to hope for. Humanity had come to this world seeking scraps, and now they were being offered a seat at the table of one of the galaxy's oldest powers. Your Majesty is generous, he said, carefully. But I must ask why. One arena match cannot have changed everything you believed about humanity. The Emperor smiled that warm smile again. You are correct. One match did not change what I believe. It confirmed what I suspected. He leaned back in his chair, and for a moment, he looked very old and very tired. I have ruled this empire for 200 years, Captain. I have seen many species rise and fall. I have watched proud civilizations crumble because they could not adapt, because they clung to old ways, even as the universe changed around them. His golden eyes fixed on Jin Wu with surprising intensity. The Volanthi have grown stagnant. We have won so many victories that we have forgotten what it means to struggle. We have dominated so many lesser species that we have lost respect for the concept of growth. He gestured toward the window, where the lights of the capital city spread across the landscape like a field of stars. My daughter has never been defeated. She has never known failure. She has never had to question whether she was truly strong or simply surrounded by weakness. Today, you taught her something that I could not, that there is always someone stronger, someone faster, someone more determined. I did not mean to humiliate her. You did not humiliate her, the Emperor interrupted. You woke her up. For the first time in her life, she has met someone worthy of her respect. For the first time, she has something to strive toward. as if summoned by his words. The chamber doors opened, and Princess Calith entered. She had changed out of her combat armor and now wore simple robes that made her look younger. Less like a warrior and more like the young woman she truly was. There was still a faint bruise on her face where Jinwoo's forehead had connected, but she wore it like a badge of honor rather than shame. "Father," she said formally, then turned to Jinwoo with an expression he could not quite read. "Captain, Your Highness." She stood before him for a long moment, and he could see the war being waged behind her golden eyes, pride versus curiosity, resentment versus respect. "I have a request," she finally said. "I wish to be appointed as the Volanti ambassador to humanity." Both Jinwoo and the Emperor stared at her in surprise. "Calith," Vortha said slowly, "you are heir to the throne. Your place is here, preparing to rule. My place is wherever I can best serve the Empire." She interrupted, and there was steel in her voice. "Today I learned that everything I believed about strength was incomplete. I need to understand these humans. I need to understand how a species that looks so weak can produce warriors like this one." She turned back to Jinwoo, and this time her expression was almost pleading. "Will you tell me about the war? About the Ghost Division? About Earth and its people? I want to learn. I need to learn." Jinwoo studied her for a long moment, seeing the genuine hunger for knowledge behind her proud exterior. She was not asking out of wounded pride or desire for revenge. She was asking because something fundamental had shifted in her understanding of the universe, and she needed to rebuild her worldview from the ground up. "If your father approves," he said carefully, "I would be honored to have you as ambassador to Earth. And yes, I will answer your questions, all of them." Calith looked to her father, and something passed between them, a silent conversation that spoke of love, concern, and reluctant acceptance. "Very well," the Emperor finally said. "You will travel with Captain Jinwoo's ship to Earth as our first official ambassador to humanity." The princess bowed deeply to her father, then surprised everyone by bowing to Jinwoo as well, a gesture of respect that Volanti royalty never offered to anyone outside their own species later. As Jinwoo walked through the palace corridors toward the landing platform where the shuttle to the horizon waited, Calith fell into step beside him. "May I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Of course. In the arena, when you had me on my knees, you could have ended everything. You could have killed me, enslaved me, humiliated me in front of my people. Why did you show mercy?" Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment, remembering the friends he had lost in the war, the lives he had taken, the weight of violence that he carried every day. "Because I have killed enough," he finally said. "I became a diplomat because I wanted to build something instead of destroying it. Today, I hope I did exactly that. But you could have secured peace through fear. Fear is not peace." Jinwoo interrupted gently. "Fear is merely the absence of open conflict. True peace comes from understanding, from respect, from the recognition that different does not mean inferior." He stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "I did not spare you because you were weak. I spared you because you were worth saving. Because I saw something in you that reminded me of myself when I was young, proud, fierce, and absolutely certain that strength was the answer to everything. And you no longer believe that? I believe that strength without wisdom is just violence wearing a prettier mask," Jinwoo replied. "I believe that the universe has enough destruction already, and I believe that every being deserves a chance to become more than what they were born to be." Calith absorbed his words in silence as they continued walking. When they reached the landing platform, the rest of Jinwoo's crew was waiting beside the shuttle. Lieutenant Park and Engineer Kwan both looked exhausted but relieved to see their captain alive and well. "Captain," Yuna said, her eyes widening as she noticed the princess beside him. "Is that Ambassador Calith Version?" Jinwoo introduced. She will be returning to Earth with us as the first official Valanthi representative to humanity. Taehyun leaned close to Yuna. Did he just say what I think he said? Welcome aboard, Ambassador, Jinwoo said with a slight smile. I think you will find that Earth is nothing like what you expect. Caliph looked out at the stars, beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Each one a sun with its own worlds, its own peoples, its own stories waiting to be told. After today, she said quietly, I expect nothing and everything. As the shuttle lifted off and began its journey back to the horizon, word was already spreading across the galaxy. The human diplomat had defeated the undefeatable princess. And then he had helped her stand. It was not a story of conquest or domination. It was something far more dangerous to the established order. It was a story of respect between equals, and for the first time, the galaxy began to understand that humanity's greatest strength was not their endurance, their ferocity, or their stubborn refusal to die. It was their capacity for mercy, and their ability to turn enemies into friends, one offered hand at a time.